speaking of suspense, torpedoes are historically the most suspenseful weapon, except maybe for depth charges, which leads me to my next question. So we've seen destroyers and cruisers, battleships, and carriers in the game. What about submarines? Is that a thing that may be happening in the future, maybe?
So it's a question we get all the time.
I bet.
Like, it's actually, I mean, it's a question that's sort of pervaded us since even like our early alpha days. People have been like, oh, what about submarines? That's like one of the first things that people think about when they've gone over the classes. They're like, oh, that seems like a big piece you left out. I mean, I think our main response to that right now is, I mean, what does that gameplay look like? Because I think a lot of people's first reaction is, oh, it's a super destroyer. We already have a class that's about stealth and torpedoes and getting in close. And I don't know if you know this about submarines, but they go really, really slow. Like, the slowest battleship we have in our game goes around 20 knots, which is, like, painfully slow sometimes. Think about, like, half to a quarter of that. So basically, you would drive across the map maybe in an entire game, if that. So the gameplay just isn't quite the same thing as you know, our game has set up between the sort of class dynamics we have, and I don't know if we have a really great idea of what kind of you know, gameplay that would really look like.
So you're not ruling it out, but it would have to feel good in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's something it's been asked about for so long now. We definitely have to like think about, well, what does that actually look like? How could we implement that? But we have to implement it smartly if that's something we want to do. And, you know, now we're at, like, post-launch and stuff. There's a whole bunch of ideas and stuff we really, really want to do. And we'll have to see if that turns out to be one that we're really excited about.
But like you were saying with World of Tanks and the launch of World of Tanks, I mean, World of Tanks really didn't even have physics until after the first year. And that changed the scope and the dynamic and the strategy of the game considerably. So, you know, Chris always talks about, you know, we're looking for what is going to be that next big thing for warships. Is submarines, is undersea battle going to be that next big thing? Or are there other things that we can implement?
So how do you, this is something that I guess with all of Wargaming's games, since they are historically accurate to a sense, how do you decide where historical accuracy ends and where balance for player experience begins? Because the argument could be made that, okay, well, if I have this tank and it travels at this speed historically, but, you know, that's really just a little bit too fast for how powerful it is, so let's nerf that by, you know, 5 miles an hour or something. Then it's no longer historically accurate. That super historical nerds are like, so how has that whole process been with this game and just in general in design?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously something we think about every time we develop a new ship. It's a constant play between making sure our game is fun and awesome, but also having this, you know, a big pillar of us is making sure we have these really cool, historically accurate ships that people who do know about this sort of history of them can talk about and say like, oh, I know why this ship is like this.
Right.
And so it is a struggle, but the main thing we can do is we can also play with a lot of parameters that aren't historical parameters. There are no hit points for a warship in real life.
But there's no hit points for a warship?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. But, you know, so there's some, like, game factors and game mechanics we have in there that aren't related to history at all that we can really play with, sort of tweak that to make sure it plays well. So, oh, okay, this ship is way faster than other ships. Well, then maybe we give it a little less hit points. You know, we can compensate in other ways besides just the historical accuracy.
Right.